is either your favorite or least favorite thing to talk about, but don't worry about it. We are going to make it fun and engaging so that you can level up your skills. We're going to be getting started in just a moment. Cool. I see that we are live on LinkedIn. So if you can post in the chat as you're seeing this or hearing this, where you are from, that would be awesome. If you can hit those little hearts or clappy hands, just so people know that we are live, that would be super helpful. And we are going to get started now. Hey, everybody. Gary Ware from Breakthrough Play, and I am joined with a very special guest, good friend of mine, Madeline Schwarz. Hi, Madeline. How are you doing?
Hi, Gary. I'm excited to be here with you. From Brooklyn.
I love the fact that, it's unfortunate what's going on in the world. Let's just be honest. Like for me, I think it's staying in place day 30,000. I don't know. Like I've lost complete.
At least 30,000.
Right. I don't know what day it is. I just know it's daytime where I'm at. But the good thing is we get a chance to connect virtually and share some really good wisdom. And today we're going to be talking about presentations. And so if you do not know Madeline, I'm just going to read a little bit of her bio for you. And in the description of this, we already got some people saying hi. April's on. She said hi. My really good friend Maureen Sweeney. Hi. Hello.
Hi.
They said hi. But if you don't know Madeline, Madeline is a communication coach. She's taught workshops and coached employees at brands such as Marriot Hotels, Mastercard, Ellevate Network, Creative Mornings, the Manhattan chapter of Commerce. And this is really cool and endearing. I have to throw this in. When Madeline is not teaching or coaching workshops, you can find her playing Legos with her little one, wandering art museums, and community organizing around local school issues. So welcome, Madeline. Hello.
Hi, Gary. Thank you.
Yes. And so as far as this is just going to be a conversation. We have some really cool activities that we're going to share, and we invite you to take them, and use them as you're getting ready to give on presentations. Because I feel like with all this going on and all the virtual gatherings, we're all called to be presenters, and I've sat on quite a few boring presentations, and I feel like even though I'm in my home, it feels like it's worse. Do you agree? Like if something's boring and you're in a virtual environment, Madeline, do you feel like it's worse?
Definitely, because when you're at home and often with your children or your spouse or your housemates, there are so many more distractions and there are just more demands on our time when we're not in the office. So you really have to work harder to get people to pay attention on video.
Yes. And so one of the things I'm really excited, and when Madeline said, hey, let's do a collab, I'm like, yes, because Madeline has a really cool process that will help you get your ideas out of your head onto paper and structured in a way that makes sense. Because I'm the type of person that I'm like, oh, I'm going to talk about this, and it's all in my head, and I get flustered, I get confused, and I'm spinning my wheels. And matter of fact, Madeline's framework came just at the right time because I was in the process of planning 2 different talks. It was Creative Mornings Birmingham and my TEDx talk for TEDx UCSD. And so it really helped me get structured. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But before we do, Madeline, I love for you to just talk about what is your sort of philosophy on public speaking, and give everyone watching, whether it's live or the replay, a little bit about your background, because your background is really interesting.
Sure. Yeah. So I come from a creative background. I spent over a decade working in the retail design and build space on retail activations, store displays, and experiential marketing events for multinational brands like Nike and Adidas and Coach and Luxottica. And during that time, I had the privilege of working with a lot of really, really talented, amazing, creative people, and just noticed that the skills that make them great at their creative parts of their job, make them amazing problem solvers, don't always go hand in hand with being able to talk about those ideas and sell them to other people. So that's where my work comes in, where I give people a process to take all those ideas that are just spinning around in the heads of creative thinkers and put them together in a way that makes sense to their teammates and clients.
Awesome. And as far as your public speaking background, you haven't always been like one that has wanted to be a public speaker. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, this is a skill that I came to late in life. For a long time, I was terrified of speaking in front of groups. Like I was fine with, 1-to-1, 1-to-2, 1-to-3, anything over that just gave me all the feelings, like pounding heart, sweaty palms, feeling so nervous that my mouth would get really dry. And getting over that fear was really the most liberating experience of my adult life. I joined a Toastmasters group where I just discovered that I actually liked public speaking. And from there, it's really history. And my philosophy on public speaking is it's just like learning to play a new sport. Anyone can learn. You just have to practice. And through practice, you build up muscles and then it gets easier.
I love that. And it's very similar to mine. I found myself working up the ranks, in a digital marketing agency. And I have no problem talking, 1-to-1, 1-to-2, like small groups. That's fine. However, in my career, because of my, just experience, I was asked quite a few times, hey, how about you talk about this in a presentation? How about you present this to our clients? And find myself just like paralyzed with fear of like, oh my gosh. And for me, it wasn't until I got into improv that I realized that, I can, this is, even though there's fear, I can get through that fear. And I learned some really cool techniques just to help me work it. And Madeline, you're absolutely correct. If you can learn to play a sport, you can learn to be a better public speaker. And so tell us a little bit about your process, and I'd like for us to just jump into it. Like I will be your guinea pig. We'll work through it. But yeah, just set us up real quick.
Sure. So like I said, I bring process to communication. So my goal is to help everyone talk about their amazing ideas, their technical work, their research in ways that are clear and concise and compelling. And there are really 3 primary steps that you need to do anytime you have a presentation.
I'm going to pull up your slide here
so awesome.
We can all see that.
All right. So step 1 is to decide what you want to say. Step 2 is to come up with a plan. And even for improvisers, a little bit of planning goes a really long way. And step 3 is to practice. And I'm going to share some techniques that you can use to practice so that you emerge from quarantine speaking like an expert.
Yes. Cool. So, that makes perfect sense. And let's break them down a little bit. When you say deciding what you want to say, I feel like that sometimes is a little bit easier said than done. Mm-hmm. Do you have a way to help people, since you are, I feel like, the queen of process, to help people figure out what they want to say and get it out of their head?
I do, yeah. So I have this 7-step guide. That's exactly what you use for your talks. And it starts with some brainstorming techniques just to get people getting all of the ideas that are up here and swimming around and put them on paper so that you can then figure out, decide on a topic. So sometimes people have too many ideas and the challenge is limiting it to 1 for the audience. And sometimes people have too many things to say about that one idea. such as like a client of mine who had 45 slides for a 15-minute speaking presentation when he was on a panel, right?
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, exactly. And so what we started with is this template that I use, which is an easy way to write a one-sentence objective for your presentation. And once you're clear on that, once you can articulate in one sentence what you want to accomplish for the audience, it makes it so much easier to plan the rest of your talk. It makes it easier to decide whether you're going to tell story A or story B. And it can just save you so much time.
Yes, and I'd like to add some color with that. Like I said in the beginning, I was using Madeline's framework when I was working on 2 talks. I don't recommend anyone ever doing that. It was just one of those things that just, you know, all it was like the perfect storm. All the things sort of aligned, and I was having to do that. And I found myself completely overwhelmed. And first and foremost, I was single tracking. I was like, all right, let me just work on this talk first because this is the first talk. And what I was doing is for me personally, I started putting different, it's like coming from my work in advertising. I was thinking of like different like headlines. You know, this was like my sort of thesis statements, and I would put a whole bunch of them out, and then I would go through, and I was just doing a process of elimination of like, all right, you know, this one seems like it's going to be the most engaging, and then I shared it with a few friends, and once I had that core statement, then I felt like all the puzzle pieces started lining up. It wasn't perfect, but at least I had that line of sight. So that was very helpful.
Yeah, and that's great that you did that, because I think so often people go down this path of trying to, you know, create all of this beautiful content. So they have a topic and they go immediately into their slides without any focus of knowing what it is that they want the audience to walk away with. And I always tell my clients, your audience isn't going to remember everything. So you want to be super clear on what it is that they're going to walk away with, like just one idea. So you should decide that at the beginning, because then you can create an entire experience for them that steers everyone toward your objective.
Agreed. Cool. So in your process or your slides here, what's next? Do you want to take us through some?
Yeah. Will you flip to the next slide?
I think you have to do it.
Oh, cool.
It's back on the screen though. Yeah. Cool.
All right. So this is where we start with everyone when they are giving a presentation, whether that's a team meeting, whether that's a panel presentation, whether they're speaking at a conference like you did. You're going to start with your objective. And this is the way I like to frame it. So you're going to fill in the blanks, Gary. And anyone watching with us, I want you to fill in the blanks for your next presentation or team meeting, because it will save you a lot of time and make your audience really appreciative when you're that much more focused.
Yes. And so let's workshop this right now. I'm working on a few presentations, and I'm working on one around fear.
Okay.
And so, you know, just using this template, you know, at the end of my presentation, I want the audience to remember that fear is just a bodily response, and they have control over how they act when they have fear. And the action step I would like them to take at the end of the presentation is to follow the framework that I'm going to outline, so that the next time they are in a fear situation, they can play with it and work it out. So that I'm just sort of throwing this out. Uh-huh. If you're watching this, we're just spitballing. I hadn't seen this ahead of time, so we're just working through it. And as Madeline mentioned, if you are working on a talk, you know, work through this. And Madeline, Maureen wants to know if you can share this. So we'll make sure there's a link to your site where people can get that as well. So
sure.
And if you're watching live and you're working through this with us, if you want to put some of your stuff, we're happy to look at it as well. So, all right, Madeline. So we have that. You know, we have like what we want the audience to remember and the action step. Now, I have a question for you: is Why that? Why is that important?
So it's important to think of it this way. It gets into your audience's head. So often we go into presentations and we're only thinking about what we want to accomplish. So I want them to buy something. I want them to, or sometimes for some of my clients who are so nervous, they just want to get through a presentation without pooping or puking. And so it's often like all up in our heads about what we're doing, and we forget to think about the fact that we are talking to other people. So when we remember that we're just talking to other humans, A, it takes a lot of pressure off, but B, it also allows us to think about our topic from the other person's perspective. And that's really important because we could have amazing information and the most beautiful deck in the world, but if we fail to connect the dots about how it's relevant to these other people that you're talking to, it can completely miss the mark. So that's why I start with this objective template. And again, like 2 minutes on this can just save you hours of preparation.
Yeah, I agree. And to chime in on that, it's in the world of improvisation, we have this phrase, how can you make your partner look amazing? And when I'm performing, on stage, and yes, I still get stage fright. I get that question a lot. You've been doing improv for, about a decade. Do you still get scared? Yes, I still get scared. And we'll talk about some other techniques here in a bit. But having that mindset of like, how can I make my theme partner look amazing? It takes it from out of my head, thinking about myself, and then, that prefrontal cortex, that judging feeling, to focusing on the other person of, what do I need to do to make this person that I'm co-creating with look amazing? And then I go into this sort of place of service. And this is a great way to start to focus your presentation, thinking about the other person. So yeah, I love this. And so what's next?
Yeah, so now that you know your objective, the next thing is to plan out your high-level speaking points. So you create a map of what you're going to talk about in your presentation. And again, you're not going to outline everything at this point. You're just going to focus in on the 2 to 3 most important speaking points, because one of the keys to a good presentation, especially now that we're presenting on video and attention spans are even shorter, is editing. Like edit. So yeah, focus. So tell me, Gary, for this presentation on fear, what are the most important points that you want to get across?
Yeah. Point number 1, there is about the brain. I want to talk about the neuroscience of when you think of fear, when you have that fear thought, it becomes in your body live fear. Talk about the difference between thought fear and live fear so that people have an understanding of fear and what happens on a physiological level. That's the other thing. And then 2, having people understand that fear is something that you can control. So talking about the process to demystify fear. And then the third thing is getting them to think about what is something that they're scared of, and how can they turn that sort of fear response into something that is not as scary. So those are the 3 things that I want to cover. And so again, I hadn't seen this before, so we're just working through this right now. You're getting a glimpse into some of the things that I'm working on. So thank you, Madeline, for this live one-on-one coaching. And if you have any things, please put it in the chat. I'm looking right now in the chat. Hey, Kathy, what's happening? And Kathy is a really good improviser friend of mine, amazing at all kinds of things. And she had said that, after 20 years, she still gets butterflies. So yes, if you're wondering about that, it still happens. The cool thing is once you learn some techniques, you can work on that. That's for another presentation. Right now, we're just talking about some high-level things to help you be more engaging. So what else? What have we got?
Yeah. And I just want to say that I love this topic of fear. I definitely want to watch this talk, Gary. But I too get asked often, like, does the fear go away? And what I always tell people is it doesn't go away. Like, I still get nervous too, but I know how to work through it now, and I expect it and just see it as part of this response of getting ready to do a big talk or a presentation. So, and actually, after we go toward the end, I have one quick thing on nerves to help people who don't love speaking in front of a lot of people or presenting on video.
Yes. I like to pose a question, for those of you who are watching. Do you get scared? Do you get stage fright? I'm curious. And what sort of things cause you that stage fright as far as public speaking? So that's one question. If you want to chime in on that, that's great in the comments. And also, what is your level of public speaking? Is this something that you do a lot, or maybe something you don't do? Or later, if you're watching the replay, that would be great. We are going to be combing through this and replying to this, so that's out for all of you. So, all right. Moving on.
Yeah, so we have gone through step 1 and 2. And so step 1, again, was to decide what you want to say. Step 2 is to come up with a plan. And now step 3 is to practice. And I love that there are so many improvisers in your community and that are tuning in, because I've learned so much from Gary, and I've learned so much from taking improv classes, but I think there's this beautiful place where improv and practice and planning meet together to create amazing presentations and audience experiences. So here are a few practice tips that you can use while you're at home. And I encourage people to not wait until the last minute. So often my clients tell me, they didn't practice because they didn't have time. And when we leave it to the last minute, we can trick ourselves into thinking we don't have any time to do this. And so I encourage people to think about how they can just fit in 10 minutes a day. So here are 4 tips that you can do at home while you are quarantining. You can practice in the mirror. And this is a great tip for anyone who feels uncomfortable making eye contact, because if you're standing in front of the mirror talking and you're not looking at yourself, it's really weird. And it'll help you get used to looking up, so that it then gets easier to do that when you are in front of other people again. Practice for your children. If you have children at home, another thing too, is just play up story time. If you're reading books at night anyway, that's a great way to build your skills, build your confidence, try out characters, and play with tone and gestures, and really ham it up for kids. But I encourage you to practice for the other living beings in your home, whether they be children, housemates, spouses, partners, dogs. Dogs make very, very understanding audiences. It's a great way to practice if you're anxious. And all of the things that you would do to keep your dog from nodding off to sleep, like moving to a new spot in the room, or talking faster, or talking slower or louder. Those are all things that also work on humans to keep them engaged. And number 3 is to practice for the pictures on the wall. I actually have a client from a workshop that I taught last week who did this because she didn't have anyone to practice with at home. So she just, used the portraits on her wall and pretended those were her audience. And again, it's a really great way to mimic having an audience, so that you can get used to making eye contact all around a space, so that when you're back in front of other people, you are used to talking to more than one person and to looking up instead of looking down.
Yes.
And the last thing is, I would encourage you to record yourself practicing. So you can do this on voice memo, or video. Since we're all presenting on video now, I would encourage you to practice on video so that you can see what your background looks like, what the lighting looks like, if you're looking up your nostrils, if you're framed correctly. So practice on video so that you can then listen back to it and see, are you loud enough? Are you going too fast or too slow? Are you speaking in a monotone voice? Is there any vocal variety? So those are things to look for when you record yourself.
And I love that. And a few things on just the whole practice thing. When I was prepping for my TED Talk, I think I recorded maybe over, I might be exaggerating, but I feel like it was like 50 different versions. And it wasn't the whole talk. Sometimes it was just like little bits and pieces. And I'm just like everyone else where I'm like, cringing at having to watch the recording. But it is so helpful. And also because the people that were giving me feedback weren't necessarily in the same time zone. So I would just record a little bit, send it over, they'll watch it and get it back. And there is this sort of myth. A lot of people say, well, Gary, you're an improviser, so you don't have to practice. Like, no, I still practice. The cool thing about being an improviser and the skills that I learned doing improv, it helps me in the moment when things don't necessarily go as planned. And if you want some really cool techniques on how you can add some of that vocal variety and stuff that Madeline talked about, make sure you stick around because I'm going to mention something that I have going on that I'm giving some of my improv secrets away that you can use as far as your practice routine, especially if you're doing live video or anything like that. And a few of the comments that we have here, Rob J mentioned, he loved these practice tips. So thanks, Rob. And he also says that he usually gets nervous when he's presenting in front of judgmental coworkers. Yes. And he also says, in a formal setting, using the template, he's going to be using the template and take the tips. Yay. Awesome. Love that. And we're just going to go off the cuff and here's a tip. If you feel like if you're presenting in front of judgmental coworkers or people that you feel like, all right, they maybe have ulterior motives, as a way so that you can show up the best version of yourself, imagine that they are the children version of them. I kid you not. Like, as you're looking at them, imagine that they are like, they transformed into little kids, and see what happens. This is like very magical. Some people say, imagine them naked. No. Every time I do that, it is not good. My facial expressions get all weird and it's just awkward. But if you just imagine that they're kids, there's something magical about when we look at kids, how our face softens. Kids and animals. There's a lot of science on that. We're not going to get into that. We don't have time, but that's just like a little bonus tip for you. And hopefully dispelled the whole thing about improvisers not needing to practice. Yes, we can handle very well in the moment. However, if it's something that has a lot of stakes and holds a lot of weight, you still got to practice. So, thank you so much for that, Madeline. This is such amazing stuff. Looks like everyone is enjoying that. I'm seeing some little clappy hands and stuff on LinkedIn.
My pleasure.
And so now we're going to transition into some of the stuff that I have that I've learned from the world of improvisation. And the first thing is an activity that I learned from the folks over at Speechless Live. We'll make sure to include links to all these folks. I did their training, which Speechless, have you ever heard of Speechless Live? They're based out of the Bay Area, and they combined presentation skills with improv and storytelling, and their show, which is completely hilarious. I like to call it like presentation roulette, where the speakers, and this is every presenter's worst nightmare. The speakers are in that moment, they get a topic and they have to like riff on that topic, 5-minute presentation with slides they've never seen before. And doing that training is really great because it's almost like when you're training for a marathon, you do like these high intensity workouts so that when you do the marathon, you are more equipped, to deal with the different terrains. I feel like if you can do a speechless training, all of your material is going to be amazing. Because if you can get up on stage and for 5 minutes give a talk that you've never done before with slides you've never seen before and make it look good, your material, you should be able to do it like that. But there was an activity that I learned from them that I think is a great way to help you do a few things. One, talk about a topic that might be a little bit complicated and make it so that it's less complicated. And two, it works with your tone and it works with your the stuff that's going on inside of your head. And they call it Vinspiration, but it's basically taking one thing that you're passionate about and describing it, describing what you do through that lens. And so, Madeline, we talked about this before, right? Mm-hmm. I believe you've done that before.
Yeah.
And
I love this exercise, and I'm so glad it's not the exercise of having to give a presentation on slides I've never seen.
Yeah, exactly. And so, Madeline, do you want to, since you've done this before, do you want to talk about like how you have used it?
Sure. Yeah. And I'm excited to also get a refresher because it's been some time since we've done that exercise. But I sometimes describe what I do in terms of cooking, which cooking and food is one of my real passions. And I often tell people that my job is a lot like cooking. And I give people a recipe to take everything in your head or all those random ingredients in the fridge and put them together in a way that makes sense and tastes good to other people.
Yes.
And you can do it on your own, but when you have a recipe or a framework to follow, it's so much easier.
Agreed. And so what Madeline did right there, she put it all together. But we're going to just break it down real quick. So the first thing when you're going through this process is to talk about what is something that you're passionate about. And so as you can see, Madeline is very passionate about cooking. And you might have to rewind and look at it again. But when Madeline was talking about it, she was lighting up. She was like, and I was getting excited. So Madeline, tell us about your passion about cooking.
Sure. So I grew up on a farm in West Virginia. So I grew up in this environment where we grew a lot of our own food. We made everything, and I do mean everything from scratch, including grinding our own flour. My dad ground flour. So cooking has just always been a big part of my life. I really value good food and making it at home, and I get excited about making things and sharing that with other people. And it's also, I think, following. I'm a big baker, and it's very process oriented. And another way to think about cooking is, you can follow a recipe, but you can throw in your own spices. And so there is some room for variation. And I think that's important in the work that I do with people too. I provide this general framework, but you get to choose your own spices. So if you don't like cilantro, maybe you throw in dill, and you get to be yourself and showcase your personality.
I love that. And so as you can see, as Madeline was talking about it, she was so passionate. She was just, it just seemed like it was natural. Now, Madeline, without doing the framework, what do you do for a living? What's your career?
I teach people how to communicate more effectively. Cool.
Awesome. And again, she said it and it sounded great. It was fine. Communicate more effectively. And it might perk your ears up. All right, cool. At caveat, Madeline's been doing this for a bit, so she's a bit practiced at this. Normally, when we are doing this in a workshop setting, when the person talks about what they do, they get very serious. I help people communicate more effectively, and it's all right, interesting. And we feel like when we have to talk about what we do, we have to be very serious about it, and that is not engaging. Matter of fact, that just is going to put people to sleep. So that's the first thing. You talk about what you love to do, what you're passionate about, and then, all right, what do you do for a living? Now, you mix the two, and then you say what you do through the lens of what you love to do, and it's, I do blank, and it's like what I love to do because, and then you just go into it. And Madeline talked about that in the very beginning, and it seemed like, boom, it just rolled off the tongue, and it probably got a lot of people excited, and it made you easily understand what she does. And Madeline, I'd love to have you just do that one more time.
Sure. So I'm a communication coach, and my job is a lot like cooking. I give people a recipe to take all of the ideas that are swimming around in their head and put them together in a way that makes sense and tastes good to other people. So you could search through the fridge all on your own and try to cook a meal, or you can have a framework to follow that makes it a whole lot easier and quicker to make it taste good and relatable to other people.
She is the Julia Child of communication, folks. So there we have it. So
that's a new tagline, Carrie.
Boom, boom, boom. Yes. I love that. See, we were on the spot. We were creating this stuff. I wish I had that like little DJ horn. That. But yeah, what'd you think of that? Like that was interesting. Like just hearing that, like it made me lean in. And so that is a really great technique if you are looking for a way to stand out, especially if you're at some of these networking events or doing things where there's other people that are in similar professions as you. If you want people to be like, ooh, tell me more, that is something. Try that, practice it. If you want to put some stuff in the comments, we will review that as well. And since we have a little bit of time, I'm going to throw out another thing that it's from the world of improvisation, but it's a great way to help you start to get to the point. As Madeline mentioned earlier through her process, you start to narrow some things down and you really get to like the gist of what you want to do. And this game is called Half-Life. And I'll explain it how it's done in improv, and then I'll tell you how you can use it to really beef up your presentation. So in the world of improv, when we play Half-Life, the actors, they get on stage and they get a suggestion, and then they do a base scene that is about a minute and a half. And then they say, all right, cool, we're going to see that exact same scene again in half the time. And then they are not speaking faster. They're doing the exact same, scene, but they're essentially cutting things out. They're getting to the point quicker. And then they say, all right, let's see that scene in 15 seconds. And then they do the exact same scene again in 15 seconds. And then, all right, let's see it in 7 seconds. And let's see it in 1 second. And so this, bringing it back to presentations, if you're workshopping a talk that you're doing, you're trying to get to the point. This is a really fun game that you can play because you can say, all right, let's take a bit, a section of my presentation. All right, do it. Now, all right, do it in half the time. Do it in half the time. And what it forces you to do is just get to the point. You start to cut out the filler words, etc. And so, Madeline, would you like to play? All right, cool. So, what is like maybe a line or like a piece of a talk that you're doing? Do you have something that you can just sort of spot out pretty quickly?
Let's see. I'm going to be giving a presentation on team communication called The Magic of Empathy.
Ooh,
communicating in crisis. I haven't sat down to review it recently, so this will really be off the cuff.
Cool. We're just playing around with it, so it's all good. So just go ahead when you're ready. You can go ahead and do a thing. I'm going to sort of time it just to see how long that little bit is, and then we'll go from there.
All right. Let's see. I'm thinking. So we're going to talk about listening today, and some. First, I'm going to ask you a question. So I want you to rate yourself from 1 to 10 on your listening skills. So 1 being my ears are my best feature, to 10 being I love the sound of my own voice. I want you to just rate yourself. Yeah. So what's yours, Gary?
I would say I'm a 5. I'm somewhere in the middle.
Okay. All right. I appreciate your honesty.
Thank you. Cool. All right. Let's freeze you there. All right. That was 41 seconds.
Okay.
So let's see if you could do that exact same thing without speaking faster in 20 seconds.
Okay. Today,
you mark, get set, go.
Today we are going to talk about your listening skills. And on a scale of 1 to 10, I want you to rate yourself. 1 being that your ears are your best feature, and 10 being that, I forgot what I was going to say. 10 being that you love the sound of your own voice.
Cool. All right, and stop. Cool. Let's see if you can do that in 10 seconds. All right. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, mark, get set, go.
The key to communication is listening. And I want you to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being your ears are your best feature, and 10 being that you love the sound of your own voice.
Boom. All seen. All right, cool. Yay. Everyone give Madeline a round of applause. Let's see those clappy hands and stuff like that. Yeah, so Madeline, how was that for you?
I definitely found myself when it was 10 seconds, I was like, I got to talk faster this time. Yeah.
You that's a natural tendency to do that. And it's all good. But one of the things that I noticed, and another thing, I just really appreciate you, Madeline, for just playing along. This is something that she's workshopping right now, so it's not like she had something, sort of canned that she was working on specifically. So when I'm working with clients, it's a specific part of a talk. So way to go, Madeline, for just being a trooper and playing along.
Baby.
Right? Just stepping into it, But one of the things that I loved about this, it was getting succinct and to the point. And so this is something that you can do in your practice routine. This can be something, especially if you're maybe having something where you're like, man, this feels a little bit long-winded. All right, boom, time it. Do half the time. And it's like when you're working out or you're training and they put those weights on your legs, it's going to feel extreme. But when you take the weights off, you're going to feel a little bit more just like yourself. And so we wouldn't expect Madeline to give the same talk in half the amount of time, but you'll find that practicing like this will help you start to trim out the words that don't make sense. And it's fun. It's a fun way. So
I'm going to use this exercise, and I love that analogy of putting the weights on, because so many people tell me like they really don't want to record themselves when they're practicing, and that might feel a little bit like those weights on your legs too. But the valuable feedback that you will get from doing that, it's so worth that extra weight and temporary pain, because it's just going to save you a lot of heartache when you are giving the presentation for real.
Woohoo! Yes. And so that is pretty much it that we have today. We're at the end. We want to be mindful of your time. But just, to recap, Madeline has an amazing process. She was just giving you just the sample. In the description, I have a link to her website, but also where you can sign up for her e-course, where you can start to put some of this to work. But I know it was Maureen, she was asking for the slides, so we'll figure out a way to get everyone the slides so that you can use this and practice this. Please sign up for Madeline's list, because her stuff is gold. But Madeline, I know you have something coming up. Love to give you the spotlight and have you just talk about that.
Yes. So I am doing a workshop collaboration with my friend Danielle Hughes starting next Tuesday, and it is a 4-week course on brand positioning and presentation. It is a super small focus group for just 6 people, and there are 2 spots left. And we will, in 4 weeks, we're going to help you nail your positioning and get clear on how to talk about it out loud to other people or online. And we'd love for you to join us. And it's called Make Your Mark in 1 month.
Ooh, I love that. Make your mark in 1 month. Sounds amazing. And for me, what I got going on, amongst seem like many things, is I am part of a live stream boot camp that's put on by Ecamm that is Leap into Live streaming. and there are going to be everything from how to get set up with your own live stream show to like advanced techniques for people that are already doing live stream. And what I'm bringing to the table is my session is how to wow your audience with the power of improvisation. So I'm going to be talking about the improver's mindset and what you can use that to apply to any sort of presentation, whether you're doing live stream or in person or whatever the case may be. And I'm going to be demoing and sharing some exercises that you can use to help you be more engaging. Similar to what we did with the Vinspiration and the Half-Life, I have some other stuff that's going to just help you really start to stand out. So I'm going to make sure that the link to that is in the comments as well, is Leap into live stream. Hold on, I think I have a few links. I'm going to put...
It sounds like a super event series for the times that we live in.
Right? It seems like we're doing so much of that right now. And that is next week, is the end of next week. I believe it's the 30th and the 1st. And so mine is on the 30th, which is next Thursday. So I'm just putting that link there. And then
and if I didn't mention, the one that I'm doing starts on Tuesday, the 28th.
Yes. So jump into these right away. Because we are all presenters, whether you like to admit it or not. We are all whether it's a one-on-one conversation or one-to-many, and we can all work on it. Madeline said it perfectly, where she said that if you can learn how to do baseball, you can definitely learn how to be a better and more engaging presenter. And I feel like it is our duty to do such things, because if not, like, we're just boring people. So nonetheless,
can I jump in?
It's all you.
On that note of baseball, I just want to say not everyone is going to enjoy it equally, but anyone can learn. Anyone takes practice.
Yes, it just takes practice. And so at this point now, Madeline, I'd love to give you the spotlight once again. If people were inspired by this and they want to stay in touch with you, like, floor is yours. Please, tell us how we can keep in touch.
So you can find me at MadelineSchwartzCoaching.com. There's no T in my last name, and Gary will put the link in the comments for this. And on my website, you can grab that link to the 7-step process to write and practice your presentation. That's what Gary used for his TED Talk and his Creative Mornings talk. And then I send out regular tips and strategies that you can use to improve your confidence speaking, whether that's on stage, on video, or with your team.
Yeah. Cool. And I'm putting the last little link here so that people can do that. It is, I feel like I'm like patting my head and rubbing my tummy at the same time doing this. And it's just, I feel like that is what I've learned from doing improv, is how to like be able to juggle these things. I know they say you shouldn't multitask, but at the end of the day, sometimes we have to. And so if you can get really good at sort of like spinning the plates, is great. And another comment from Maureen: make your mark in 1 month. She loves that. So
thanks.
Cool.
And can we end with one thing for
please?
Yeah, because
yeah. We should do that.
It was Rob who was talking about getting nervous in front of a big group or in front of
just for you, Rob.
Judgmental coworkers. And so I want to take you through this really quick breathing technique that can help with that.
Please.
So what we're going to do is we're going to count backwards, starting with 5. So we're just going to start with 5. If you'll count along with me, Gary.
Yes.
So 5. 4. 3. 2. 1. And then at the bottom, we want to give ourselves a new thought to ground ourselves. Cool. So instead of thinking my coworkers are judgmental, we might choose to think my coworkers are paying attention. They are curious. Like, often people get really freaked out about having all of these people staring at them in a room. And instead of thinking like, oh, all these eyes are staring at me and waiting for me to fail, we can just think, oh, they're paying attention. And that can make us feel a lot less nervous. So let's count together and then fill in a thought at the end.
Yes.
So
here we go.
5, 4,
4,
3, 2, 1.
Oh, my coworkers are deeply passionate and paying attention.
Great. Yeah, so that's a great one. So this technique, actually, it comes from Mel Robbins, and it slows down your thoughts because it actually moves your brain from your flight or fright response to your thinking brain here, because you have to stop and think about counting backwards instead of, the automatic counting forward. And then there's this one other piece that I've added in, which is just an additional sensory thing that really helps me and helps my clients get grounded back in their body when they're feeling nervous. So we're going to do it one last time together.
Yes.
And as we count, I want you to touch your thumb and forefinger and then your next finger. Yeah. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that is.
Yeah, and I just find it really adding in the sense of touch really gets me present back in my body and gets me to stop thinking about the thoughts that are in my head that might make me feel really nervous, and instead go back to my objective of this is what I want to share with the audience, and this is how it's going to be helpful to them. So try that really short grounding practice the next time you are giving a presentation, and you can do it to yourself silently when you are about to get on video or when you're up next to talk on the video call, or you can do it on stage when we go back to presenting to live audiences.
Yes. So lots of extra goodies for you. Thank you all so much for tuning in. This has been another live. If you love this stuff, you can go to my website, breakthroughplay.com. On the upcoming events, I have all kinds of other things that I have going on. Rob, thank you for the feedback on the presentation stuff. Totally down to do some stuff like that. Love that is something that people are interested in. And until next time. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.